Hello everyone, my name is Nina Elise. Welcome to my channel. I am a mindset and manifestation coach, and I help women uplevel their identities and manifest their dream lives. So if you are familiar with my channel already, I have mostly done human design and yoga videos, and this is just an extension of my own life journey and just progressing in my journey and learning about consciousness and learning how to just live life in a way that is more beneficial for me and everyone else around me. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing a lot about my own journey to emotional regulation and emotional mastery. So just to give you a little bit of a background for my human design people, I am a 4/6 emotional manifester. So when I first got into human design about 5 or 6 years ago and became a certified human design specialist and coach, it was a journey of really learning how to tap into my emotions and learning how to work with them. And that took me a really long time, a lot of experimentation. And honestly, it wasn't until I learned about subconscious rewiring and how the mind works and reality creation that I was able to really begin to work with my emotions in a lot of different ways. So I'm so grateful for human design to provide that kind of starting point for me to learn how to regulate my emotions, because it brought me back to a place of my own inner guidance and my own inner GPS, which is what following your strategy and authority in human design is. And I think it is so beneficial. To me, it's like a stepping stone basically for really understanding who you are and guiding you back to a place of sovereignty within yourself, for choosing a life that feels in alignment and that feels in flow for you. So after I was into human design for like 4 or 5 years, I really got into Gene Keys. And Gene Keys was kind of like the next step for me to learn how to work with my emotions in a different way. And what I mean by that is I went through the Venus sequence with Gene Keys. And Gene Keys is basically a very big place of introspection that you can go into, and it's all about relationships. So around that time, I was going through basically like a spiritual awakening. This is about 2 years ago, and I went through the Gene Keys Venus sequence, and it basically taught me how to take radical responsibility for myself and my emotions and my underlying patterns and how I was affected by my environment at different stages in my life. And it was probably one of the most empowering things that I have ever done to date, is going through that Venus sequence with Gene Keys. It teaches you the art of contemplation. It teaches you how to take responsibility for things in your life while also giving yourself grace and compassion at the same time. So I always highly recommend that as another stepping stone on this journey of really understanding how you interact with your reality and how you can take responsibility for it in a way that doesn't feel so crushing to your soul, essentially. So after I went through that, I went through a journey of basically coming to like this blank space of wow, or like a blank slate of like, I can create my life in any way that I choose. And it was really scary, because once you start to really take responsibility for what's going on in your mind, what is like what patterns that you're playing out, what your emotional patterns are, and you start to realize that, oh, I'm actually responsible for how I manage this and how I choose to show up in the world and who I choose to show up as a person and how I choose to react. It's very empowering, but at first for me personally it was very scary because I was like, oh my gosh, like I literally was starting over. Like I kind of hit rock bottom when I went through my spiritual awakening, and I had nothing. Like everything I owned was in the back of my Jeep. I went to go live with my dad for a couple of months. I had no job, like nothing. And during that time period is when I learned how to not run away from all of the emotions and all of that stuff. And I just sat with it, and I learned how to not be afraid of it, essentially, and learned how to feel. And the following year after that was a year of learning emotional regulation and emotional mastery, in a sense. So for someone who didn't know how to manage their emotions their entire life, I'm 36 right now, so I was 34 at the time, and I would just be overcome with my emotions all the time. It was a coping mechanism. I didn't know any different, and I didn't know how to get out of that constant loop of being caught in my emotions. And so basically for about an entire year, I kind of cocooned. I stopped going to my friends and dumping my drama on them. I learned how to sit with the emotions that came up and did a ton of inner child work. And basically just like learned how to be with myself and not be afraid of my emotions. So I would have emotions that would come up. I would cry, I would shout, I would scream, I would like say all the things, the ugly things that were, just simmering inside of me, and have these emotional outbursts. And then I would give myself grace after that. And then I would journal on it and I would reflect on it. And I would say, okay, why am I feeling like this? What is the pattern? And so essentially it was like this time period of allowing 34 plus years of suppressed emotions to come up to be felt. And after about a year of doing this, like being in my own space, and learning how to do a lot of inner child work and giving myself lots of grace, I finally got to the point where I was like, I'm kind of tired of being on this emotional roller coaster. Like, I wanna have a different experience. So I honestly had this moment where I went for a run and then I went for a walk on the beach after, and I sat down on the beach and I was just watching the waves, and I just started cracking up. Like, I was just me out there looking at the ocean. I started cracking up and I was like, I don't want to be sad anymore. I'm bored of being sad. And it was just like this very profound moment for me where I was like, wow, I can experience any emotion in the world, and I've been choosing sadness for so long. And after that moment, I decided to do coaching and hire people to help me with like my business, and then also continue my learning of like how the actual mind works, because I worked with my emotions for so long and I was like, okay, I have them and I can handle them and they're not scary to me anymore, but they're still there in a lot of different ways that I didn't think was normal. And I wasn't like saying it was wrong for me to feel those things or to have emotions. It just seemed like, okay, this is kind of excessive. Like, obviously there's some sort of trigger, and I didn't really know how to like manage that. So I signed up for a coaching program through Yes Supply, and they teach you subconscious rewiring work, parts work, hypnosis, and just EFT tapping, and you get all these certifications with it. And so I did that about a year ago and went through, I think it was like 4 or 6 months training, and learned about the subconscious mind. I learned about reality creation. I learned that basically your emotions come from your thoughts and your core belief systems, which I had learned about before, but I didn't really understand until I went through this training, this coaching training. And so it was really eye-opening for me, and I was so excited to learn about all of this, because after all of the ayahuasca ceremonies that I had sat in, all the plant medicine that I had drank, all whatever, the stuff that I had done, the emotional regulation work that I had done, the therapist that I had worked with, doing subconscious rewiring work, within like 15 minutes of doing a specific technique, it was like years and identities like would just disappear. And so for me, it was like this missing piece of the puzzle that was like, oh, this is kind of like the core of what I was searching for. Like, plant medicine was helpful in the sense that it expanded my consciousness to like other things that are outside of this 3D reality, and just really taught me to see the world in a very different way and be more open to it. Human design taught me how to accept myself and give myself permission to fully be myself and accept my skills and to accept my emotions and things like that. And same with Gene Keys as well. And so when I learned about this, it was just another piece of the puzzle of like, oh, here's another part of like how reality works in a sense. And after that, for the past year, since I've been doing the subconscious rewiring work and things like that, I have way less emotions, like in the sense that I have like these emotional outbursts. I still like have emotions. I'm human. And when they come up, I just view them as like, oh, they're temporary. And now I have different tools in order to manage my emotions and how I actually perceive and react to them. So I'm not shaming myself. I'm not thinking I'm bad for having them. I allow myself to feel them. And after I feel them, now I have the tools in order to reflect back and say, okay, what was the thought or the core belief system about why I'm feeling this way? Or why was I feeling angry? Or why was I feeling sad? Or why was this triggering me in some way? And so instead of pointing my finger and saying, oh, this person's a narcissist, or this person is a bad person, or they did this to me, it's never like, I don't look at it from that perspective at all. because learning about subconscious work, learning about law of assumption and the whole manifestation community, which some people might call manifestation as like this woo-woo thing, but it's actually based on psychology and quantum physics. And there are facts of like how reality actually works. And people just look at manifestation as like, oh, it's this woo-woo thing. And it's like, no, it's actually like you're being intentional with how you are creating your reality through the words that you're speaking, because you're creating your future through your thoughts and your belief systems in every single now moment, and the identity that you have of how you perceive yourself. And just changing something different or believing something different is what is going to shift and change something in your external reality. So manifestation to me is probably like one of the most solid things that everyone should at some point in their life take a look at and explore and experiment with, and not just like watch The Secret or whatever, because I did all of that stuff in my 20s and it was just not like, to me it was like this magical thing. And when you really understand how manifestation works, it really isn't some woo-woo thing. It's very strongly based on esoteric wisdom and on quantum physics as well. So I'm not going to go too deep into that in this video, but I do have other videos that go into that on my Instagram, and I'll probably do more in the future. So anyways, this learning about the subconscious work, it was able to like give me the tools to contemplate and find myself in emotional moments without blaming other people. So some people might call this victim blaming, where it's like you're automatically going to yourself and saying, oh, there's something wrong with me. That's something that's very completely different. You are victim blaming in that sense when you're sitting there and you're like being mean to yourself and saying, I'm a bad person because I did this. What you're doing when you are a stubborn being and you're taking responsibility for your reality as a reality creator. I call myself a reality architect because I love to play around with how I can create my reality in different ways and experience things in different ways. But when you are intentionally creating your reality, it's being able to be the observer, to step back, to not get caught up in the emotions and say, okay, how is my external world a reflection of my inner world? And then you can start to look into your inner world and say, what are the core belief systems? What's going on within me? What is my belief system about men? What is my belief system about women? Like, why are these people showing up in my reality in this way? Is it because I don't respect myself? Is it because I actually have low self-worth, or don't feel like I'm good enough? Or maybe I'm not very good at setting boundaries because that's something that you weren't taught, and there's nothing wrong with you. Because of that, these are just things that you're becoming aware of, because our external reality is constantly reflecting back what is going on in our inner world, basically our inner belief systems and our thoughts and our identity of who we think we are, because who we think we are is what is going to be reflected back to us by every single person around us in our reality. So if you don't like your external reality, then it's your belief systems are staring at you right in your face. And side note, a really amazing book that goes into more detail about this is The Personal Nature of Reality. I think that's the right book. I can put a link in the description, but that's a really, really great book that you can read. There's also, I think it's also on YouTube. There's like a channel that has like the entire book on audio on YouTube. So if you want to listen to it, you can do that as well. And I'll share that link below too. So basically, your reality is a reflection of everything that's going inside. So from an emotional perspective of learning how to regulate your emotions and become the master of your emotions, it's not necessarily your emotions that you're mastering. It is becoming aware, expanding your self-awareness of what your belief systems are and what is going on in your internal world at all times. And what is that inner dialogue? What are the beliefs that are going on inside of you? So when people ask me like, oh, how can I do this? And how can I manifest fast and do this and this and this? And while it's possible for you to make changes really, really quickly, for me personally, it has been the last few years of intensely being radically honest with myself, cocooning, and removing myself from situations and cutting myself off from having the same behaviors, and taking responsibility for basically the thoughts that are going on in my mind, and then also digging very deep and digging up all of the belief systems and things that have been going on inside of me for so many years that I wasn't even aware of. And so this journey of emotional mastery and emotional regulation, it's just that, it's a journey. Like, it's okay to have emotions. I think over time, just from my own journey, is I've become less of an emotional person. Yes, I still have emotions, and my initial reaction might be an emotion, but for me, there's always a pause. There's no projection or reaction to something. If there is, and I can't figure it out within myself, I work with a coach, or I go to the person directly and I communicate with them and I'm like, hey, I'm dealing with this. Can you help me work through this? Let's talk through this. And so there's different ways to approach this, because at the core, your emotions are just a byproduct of what's going on in your mind and how you view and perceive the world. And that is created from a very, very young age that we're not aware of. From like age 0 to 7, our brains are operating in a different brain state. So we're actually consuming information. We essentially don't have a filter for like what's coming in outside of our environment. And that's how our belief systems are shaped. Our self-perception and our self-concept is shaped at a very, very young age. And then as we get older, we're operating on a different brainwave state. And so we have that filter where our conscious mind is like, no, I'm not going to believe that, or yes, I'm going to believe that, and take that on as a new belief system. So as an adult, we're working in different brainwave states. And so we're able to start to become aware of what's going on around us. So we're not as deeply affected by our environment. But so yeah, that has been my journey so far with emotional regulation, emotional mastery. I wouldn't say I'm like a master at it by any means, but it is something that I'm much, much more mindful of, and I'm not allowing my emotions to dictate my reality. When they come up, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm feeling emotions right now, or I'm feeling emotional, or this is triggering. Okay, why is this triggering for me? Like, what is coming up? How am I perceiving this person? Or why is this happening? And it might just be like, oh, this person said something to me and it's triggering like my insecurity about not being successful in the way that I would like, or it's triggering my own insecurity about like, oh, I don't think that I'm very pretty or attractive or fit or whatever it may be. And so the way people are just reflecting back how you view yourself and how you perceive yourself, or what beliefs you have about other people or your external reality. So at the end of the day, to me, that's not victim blaming. It's taking responsibility for what's going on in your inner world, not being upset about it, and just saying, oh, okay, like that's an option. And I can choose something different right now if I want. And if you're familiar with Bashar, he's a guy who channels, he said this thing he said, it's not a pattern anymore, or it's no longer a pattern once you become aware of the pattern. It's now a choice. And I really, really love that. And because it is true, like once you become aware of your emotions and things that are going on, and you're becoming aware of that loop or that pattern that you may be caught in, you're like, okay, you can step back and be an observer of it. And once you're the observer of it, now you can go down the path of choosing something different. And it may not necessarily be like change in the instant, in that moment. And that's why I think a lot of grace comes in, and we're learning how to refine like how we make a different decision or how we make a different choice, because neurologically speaking, we have a very deeply ingrained pattern in our brain to react in a certain way. And so it takes time to reprogram in a new reaction, a new neurological connection in the brain to make a change. And so that is something that I also want to say too, is like when you're going through this process of regulating your emotions, learning how to shift and change your thoughts and your self-concept and different things in the world, like this requires a lot of grace and a lot of compassion as you are shifting and changing, because you're essentially going through a lot of different deaths in a lot of ways, because you have identities as saying, oh, I'm an emotional person. In human design, oh, I'm a manifestor, so it must mean this. Or, you know, I've always been the strong person. And it's like you wear that as a badge of honor, and then you start to realize this actually isn't serving me anymore. But then there's a death of that identity of whatever that was giving you, or you thought was giving benefits for having that identity, and to let that go and allow yourself to view yourself in a more fluid light and say, yeah, that is a potentiality of how I can identify with myself but it doesn't have to be like my ultimate identity. And for me, that creates a lot of freedom in life, because we don't have to be stuck as the same person all the time. And I think that's what's so fun about reality creation and about just consciousness in general. I view the world like we're in a video game. We might be like, I don't know, 200,000 inceptions deep in an AI simulation. Like, we really have no idea. And when you look at it from that perspective and how many freaking galaxies exist in the universe, like, we are peanuts, like, we're like nothing. So why not just have fun and have the experience of being humans and viewing the world from this perspective instead of taking things so seriously? So I'm kind of getting a little off topic here. I could literally talk about this all day, but for the sake of this video, I'm talking about emotional mastery, emotional regulation. At the end of the day, life really isn't so serious, but when we're dealing with emotions, especially if you have not learned how to regulate them, or you haven't felt safe to express them for most of your life, and now you're learning how to, it takes time. It takes time to be patient with yourself, to give yourself grace. It can be more challenging when you're around other people. I know for me, showing emotions around people still can be a little bit more difficult, but now I'm much more open in sharing them. I used to intellectualize them a lot, especially in this journey of learning how to regulate my emotions. And now if I'm feeling something, I'll just cry. It's not as big of a deal. So there's definitely like that journey and that process of learning how to manage your emotions, and then coming to the point of realization of like, oh, I don't have to suffer or create this, because the emotions are actually stemming from core belief systems and thoughts and my identity of myself. And then when you start to go a little bit deeper into that, then you're able to have more, I don't want to say control over your life, but you have more of a say of how you're feeling, how you're perceiving reality, how other people show up in your reality, and how you actually perceive yourself and the quality of your life, and not just being in these like low emotions all the time, basically. And you let go of that identity of suffering or sadness. Sadness was an identity for a really long time. And then I released that doing subconscious work. And it was like someone lifted a veil off of my life, on my past and present, and the way that I view the future as well. And so it's like really, really powerful as we go a little bit deeper into our inner world, and we start to get to know ourselves more, and we start to realize like what we're doing inside here, our imagination, what's going on in our mind at all times, this is what's creating our external reality. And so that to me can feel more there. That's much more empowering to me, because I can work with what's in here. When you try to change things on the outside, it's like so much work. It's like you're trying to force things in this 3D reality when it actually begins in here. So that is my journey with emotional regulation. This is something that I work with my clients on a lot, is really learning how to use inner child work for managing their emotions, first of all, because I think some people can leap into the subconscious work or manifestation or law of assumption or law of attraction communities, and it's like they try to force their way to believing or having a different reality. And for me, that was not my journey. I could not do that. I had to learn how to be with my emotions and not be afraid of them first before I actually went into that. So maybe this speaks to you and this is helpful for you in some way, to help you understand and give yourself some grace as well. If you're like me, who did all the things and you're like, this is not working for me. Why is this not working for me? We all have our own journeys. We can look at other people and be like, oh, they're so far ahead and they look like they have their shit together. And it's like, it's not true. Nobody knows what the heck they're doing. It may look like it, and that is their unique path. And what's beautiful about this is once you become stubborn or step into your sovereignty and you start to understand that you really are the creator of your reality, you get to define what your path is and what your journey looks like. And nothing or anybody outside of you can have any say in that, because you're the one in your internal world that decides that. So I hope that this was helpful. If you are in need of any support, I have a free inner child guide. I will put the link below in this video that you can download for free. If you've gone through the emotional stuff and you're like, I'm ready to create my dream life, I have a reality creation guide that is for free as well. I will put that in the description below. And if you're interested in human design, I have free human design report, put that link in the description as well. And if you're in need of more one-on-one support, I work with a lot of clients who really want to dive into releasing a lot of those subconscious belief systems. It's one of my favorite things to do because it provide such fast results, and coupling that with inner child work and also human design and also the whole manifestation aspect of it. So depending on what you're coming to me with, there's so many different modalities that we can work with to help you step into a place where you can actually learn how to regulate your emotions and become more master of your reality, learning how to create your dream life in a way that is beneficial for you, so you're not constantly suffering or being caught up in your emotions or being kind of like victim to these unconscious belief systems that you may not be aware of. So anyways, that is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this. If you'd like to learn a little bit more, you can also go to my website at nina-elise.com, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.